Maybe it's in the color where I left my lover, on an expensive fate. My V is for vendetta. I thought that I'd feel better, but now I got a bellyache.
Hey, it's Layla, and today I'll be talking about the rise of Ghana and Africa's geography. Africa's interior is Littell, which looks like a plate turned upside down. Africa has many waterfalls, which discourages sea trade. The Sahara Desert covers most of northern Africa. Even though the Sahara measures 3.5 million miles today, it used to be much smaller in ancient times because trees and grasslands and rivers covered most of the desert. But 6,000 years ago, the climate started to get drier and continued getting drier as years passed by. They then started using camels instead of horses for long dry trips. Travel became much harder. People in Africa live where rain falls most. Each zone has its own climate. The rainforest zones are mainly along the equator. It is hot and wet year-round. Therefore, many animals live there. Above and below the equator is the savanna zone, which is a broad grassland with scattered trees and some animals living there. Some savannas are known as tropical savannas and have wet and dry seasons. Another zone is the desert zone, which is above and below the savanna zone. And finally, there's the Mediterranean zone, which is mainly in the northern tip of Africa, where summers are warm and dry and winters are rainy. The two main rivers of Western Africa are the Niger and Senegal rivers. Early civilizations lived around these rivers because they were a reliable source of water, farming, travel, and trade across West Africa. Some natural resources in West Africa are land for farming and grazing, trees that provide fuel or building material, and minerals such as gold, copper, and salt. West Africans started making metal tools and later developed iron tools. 350 BC. And working technology later spread through West Africa. Around 300 AD, the Soninke people founded a land between the Niger and Senegal rivers. And as the food supply grew, people started to have jobs and skills, which is better known as labor specialization. Each family had a specialization such as fishing, cloth making, and cattle raising. The Soninke people benefited from iron making and started controlling others. The kingdom grew into an empire called Ghana. Ghana started enslaving people and trading them for salt and other goods. West Africans traded gold for salt with North Africans. The trade between the North Africans and West Africans is called trans-Saharan trade. The kings of Ghana grew really rich from the trans-Saharan trade and started taxing gold producers and every good that entered or left Ghana. Ghana's rulers also controlled gold supply and knew if the supply grew too large, then the price would go down. So they made a law that any gold from the ground would become the king's property, which removed a lot of gold from the market. Ghana prospered for many centuries and welcomed many religions such as Islam. However, it eventually started to decline. Ghana started getting overpopulation, food shortages, and over-dependence on trade. Around 1060, the Almoravids expanded their empire to Ghana to spread their own interpretation of Islam and to control the gold trade. Although the invasion failed, it disrupted Ghana's trade. Soon, Ghana had trouble supporting its population and never returned to its success after the invasion. And for the open letter. Dear ancient Ghana citizens, it's really messed up to trade your slaves for salt. You could use them to clean your house, farm, and build, and humans are much more valuable than salt. Sincerely, Layla.
Hey guys, it's Jumana, and today I'm gonna talk about society and culture in West African empires. In West African empires, the culture and society may differ from what we're used to today. So in West African empires, most positions of leadership were reserved for men. Women, on the other hand, farmed and took care of families, but that's about it. In West Africa, they also had social classes. Social class, also known as a caste, a person is usually born into a caste. In the West African social ladder, most power goes to the emperor. The emperor has the highest status out of everyone in the empire. And all who appear before an emperor must bow before him. The next highest social class is kings and nobles. Nobles had to help the emperor rule certain parts of the empire. They also led armies. After nobles and kings come the traders. The traders run businesses and farms and many other things that get the money. Enslaved people, however, were the lowest social class. There are many different reasons that an enslaved person could be slaved. Maybe they were born into slavery. Another reason could be that they were held captive in war, or they were political prisoners. Maybe they were kidnapped victims. Slaves had many jobs to do. They served as soldiers, farm workers, and servants. However, some slaves had rights in Africa. They could marry and have families and not be separated from their families. They could even earn money to buy freedom. So now on to families. In West Africa, families shared something called a kinship. A kinship is a relationship based on families. Those families were not just parents and their children. There were grandmas, aunts, uncles. These large families formed lineages. And those lineages formed from a connection of one common ancestor. When many lineages were combined, they formed a clan, which is a group of all these large families. Moving on to religion, a great diversity in ethnic groups populated West Africa. Islam and Christianity were practiced to a great extent in West Africa. Most African religions had leaders to guide their prayers. People engaged God on a daily basis, and religious people helped the people with that. The Arabic language allowed for more learning in Africa. Many Africans had strong oral tradition, meaning they used oral history, poetry, folktales, and saying both to teach and entertain. Oral traditions credit a single, legendary, and heroic figure. With the final act of unification, Sunjata, the most powerful of the Mali rulers, finally subjected the Soso people to the authority of the Mand languages. The praises of Sunjata today are sung by every Griot or Mand oral historian. The performance of the Griot within Mand society on the behalf of the royal clan is an example of how history is used to legitimize the formation of an empire. To pass time in West Africa, they had to do something because then they would get bored. So what they did was they had traditional music, dance, storytelling. They had unique instruments made from animal hides, gourds, and carved wood to create a unique African sound. Masks and dancing were also used for entertainment, religious purposes, and social ceremonies. Griots, they tell stories. It's kind of hard to tell how long griots existed, but they were socially important for centuries. Griots receive a fee for doing their tasks today, where a griot stood before the ruler in a costume made of feathers when they recited their poetry. The most widely used instrument is the drum. African drummers created something called polyrhythmic drumming. Polyrhythmic drumming is when drummers combine two or more sounds together at the same time. Dancers performed complex movements to match the drummer's polyrhythmic rhythms. It was so complicated that their feet could match one rhythm and their hands match another rhythm. They performed during festivals and religious ceremonies. Dancers wore masks of gods and spirits. West African artists created art for many reasons. Art was used in everyday life to express people's beliefs. For example, people honored the dead with wooden carvings of images of their ancestors. Emperors used art to show off their wealth and power. Time for the open letter. Dear Ibn Battuta, I can't believe you traveled all around the world. I wish I can do that. I literally have a dream of traveling to every single country in the world. I'm actually super jealous of you. You were like a travel blogger before a travel blogger even existed, except you didn't really blog your travels. Also, I really want to be a travel blogger. So, like, you're really lucky. I wouldn't actually say I wish I had your life though, because like you don't have internet, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, or phones. So yeah, I actually don't wish I had your life, but like you're still lucky. Sincerely, Jumana. So like that's about it for West African society and culture.
Maybe it's in the color where I left my lover.